Welcome to your storytelling. Enjoy the stories, and don't forget to subscribe. I always knew Ethan kept secrets, but I never imagined finding fake IDs and offshore account statements hidden in his office. My hands trembled as I pieced it together. He was planning to fake his death. Life insurance papers were conveniently updated, naming him the sole beneficiary. The betrayal hit hard. This wasn't just about me. He was leaving our kids too. I couldn't ignore the sinking feeling in my chest. I had to act before he vanished for good. I waited for Ethan that night, every word rehearsed, anger bubbling beneath my calm. When I confronted him, his reaction wasn't guilt. It was irritation. "You're overreacting," he snapped, brushing me off. But his denial didn't match the panic in his eyes. He accused me of invading his privacy, turning the argument on me. My instinct screamed that this was bigger than I thought. His betrayal wasn't impulsive, it was calculated. I had to uncover the full truth. Ethan's behavior grew stranger. Late-night calls, hidden documents, it was all too much. So, I followed him. Watching from a distance, I saw him meet a man in a dark car. Their conversation was tense, Ethan gesturing wildly. My heart pounded. This wasn't just about money. There was danger involved. When he got home, I pretended to sleep. Inside, I felt a storm brewing. He wasn't just lying to me. He was leading us into something far more sinister. Sarah, my best friend, noticed my exhaustion. I told her everything, needing someone to help me think clearly. She was shocked but determined to support me. "We'll figure this out," she promised, pulling out her laptop. Together, we dug into the accounts I'd found. The transactions painted a terrifying picture. Ethan owed dangerous people money. Sarah's determination was my lifeline. With her help, I felt stronger, but I knew the storm was only beginning. One morning, a man approached me at the cafe. "You're Ethan's wife," he said, his tone flat. My stomach churned as he slid a photo across the table. Ethan, laughing with people I didn't recognize. "Your husband's in deep," he warned. "Stay out of it, or you'll regret it." My mind raced. Who was he? An accomplice? An enemy? I clutched the photo, fear gripping me. Ethan wasn't just hiding from me. He was hiding from someone far worse. The stranger's warning haunted me. That night, I searched Ethan's phone while he showered. Hidden messages confirmed my fears. He wasn't just faking his death to escape debt. He was laundering money for criminals. Panic set in as I realized the danger we were in. If his plan failed, they'd come for us. I couldn't confront Ethan again. I had to outsmart him. My kids' lives depended on it, and I wouldn't let him destroy our family. To protect myself, I started documenting everything. Photos, texts, receipts. I saved them all in a hidden drive. I even set up a recorder under his desk. Listening to his calls was painful. He sounded so cold, discussing the transfer and severing ties. Who was this man? I couldn't recognize my husband anymore. Every secret I uncovered made me more determined. If Ethan thought he could leave us in shambles, he was gravely mistaken. One night, Ethan came home drunk, mumbling about a deadline. His slurred words terrified me. He said, "It's done. They'll take care of it." I didn't wait to find out what he meant. I packed a bag for me and the kids, grabbing essentials, and fled to Sarah's house. My heart broke watching Emma and Jack sleep, unaware of the chaos. I had no plan yet, but staying with Ethan wasn't an option. We had to disappear. At Sarah's house, I explained everything. She was horrified but had doubts. "You need proof," she said. "Without it, the police won't act and Ethan will win." Her words hit hard. I couldn't just run forever. I had to face him head-on. But how? Sarah offered to help me plan. We decided to gather solid evidence and go to the authorities. For the first time in weeks, I felt a spark of hope. We could fight back. Desperate for action, I called an anonymous tip line, sharing what I knew about Ethan's schemes. I was careful not to mention myself or the kids. The operator asked for specifics, but I couldn't say much without exposing us. "Just look into his finances," I urged. It wasn't much, but it was a start. That night, I lay awake wondering if I'd done the right thing. If Ethan found out, it could ruin everything. But staying silent wasn't an option. Back at the house to grab more belongings, I noticed Ethan was acting paranoid. He double-checked locks and shredded papers obsessively. My stomach turned. He knew someone was onto him. I quietly copied his latest documents, my hands shaking. Before I could leave, Ethan grabbed my arm. "Why are you so jumpy lately?" he asked, his eyes searching mine. I forced a smile and lied, but his suspicion was clear. I had to be more careful. Emma and Jack began noticing the tension. "Why aren't we going home?" Emma asked one night. I didn't want to scare them, but I also couldn't lie. "Daddy and I need some space," I said. Jack, too young to understand, just hugged me. The weight of protecting them was crushing. I promised myself I wouldn't let them get caught in Ethan's web. I had to be their shield, even if it meant carrying the fear alone. The man from the cafe approached me again. "You didn't listen?" he said, handing me another photo. This time of me and the kids at Sarah's house. My blood ran cold. "This isn't about Ethan anymore," he warned. "They know who you are." I stammered, trying to keep calm. "What do they want?" He smirked. "Leverage." As he walked away, I realized the danger wasn't just Ethan. It was everyone tied to his schemes. We were targets now. Ethan's paranoia turned to aggression. "Where have you been?" he demanded when I came home for the last of our things. His eyes burned with suspicion. "You're hiding something." I denied it, but he didn't believe me. He searched my bag and found the USB drive with all the evidence I'd gathered. My heart stopped. "What's this?" he growled. I lied, saying it was backups for work. He didn't buy it. I barely escaped his wrath that day. With Sarah's help, I hired a private investigator to dig deeper into Ethan's dealings. I couldn't do this alone anymore. The PI uncovered chilling details, offshore accounts tied to dangerous organizations. "Your husband's playing with fire," he warned. "You need to get out for good." I already knew that, but hearing it confirmed made it feel more real. Time was running out. If I didn't act soon, Ethan's lies would swallow us whole. The PI discovered Ethan had falsified work trips to cover meetings with his criminal associates. Bank records showed massive withdrawals matching those dates. I felt both vindicated and horrified. His entire life was a facade. The evidence was mounting, but I couldn't take it to the police yet. Ethan had connections, and I feared they'd tip him off. I needed a plan to protect my family and bring him down at the same time. The man from the cafe, Daniel, as I learned, found me again. "You don't know the kind of people Ethan's dealing with," he said. "They'll kill to keep their operation quiet." I wanted to ask why he was helping me, but fear silenced me. He handed me a burner phone. "Call me if it gets worse," he said before disappearing into the crowd. My instinct screamed not to trust him, but he seemed like my only lifeline. One night, while I spoke with Sarah about Ethan's schemes, Emma overheard us. "Daddy's bad?" she asked, tears streaming down her face. My heart broke. "Daddy made some bad choices," I said carefully, "but I'm going to keep us safe." She didn't ask more, but her silence was heavy. I realized then that this wasn't just my fight anymore. It was theirs too. I had to protect their innocence, even if it meant carrying the weight of the truth alone. I followed Ethan one night, staying far enough behind that he wouldn't notice. He met a man in a black SUV. Their conversation heated. I couldn't hear much, but I caught the words deadline and cleanup. My stomach churned. Ethan wasn't just planning his escape. He was tying up loose ends. I recorded everything from my hiding spot, my hands trembling. Whatever Ethan was planning, it was bigger and more dangerous than I'd imagined. The anonymous tip I'd given finally caught the attention of law enforcement. An officer came to Sarah's house, asking if we'd seen anything unusual. I played dumb, fearing they might blow my cover. "Keep an eye on him," the officer advised. "Men like Ethan don't just walk away clean." The warning stuck with me. I realized the police were watching Ethan, but they didn't know the full extent of his plans. I had to stay one step ahead. Ethan cornered me one evening, his tone icy. "You're hiding something," he said, his eyes boring into mine. "If I find out you're working against me, you'll regret it." His words sent chills down my spine, but I stood my ground. "You're being paranoid," I lied, my voice steady. Inside, I was crumbling. Ethan wasn't just suspicious, he was dangerous. I knew then that the man I married was gone, replaced by someone I no longer recognized. Daniel showed up again, this time at night. I used to work with Ethan, he confessed. I got out before it got messy, but I couldn't walk away from what he's doing now. His revelation shocked me. Why are you helping me? I asked. His answer was simple. Because your kids deserve better. I didn't trust him fully, but his knowledge of Ethan's operation was invaluable. Together, we started planning how to expose Ethan without putting the kids in danger. With Daniel's guidance, I sent copies of the evidence to multiple people, including the police. If something happens to me, this goes public, I warned Ethan through a veiled message. His face paled when he realized the extent of what I knew. For the first time, he looked afraid. But fear in Ethan was dangerous. It meant he'd retaliate. I braced myself for the storm that was sure to come, knowing there was no turning back now. Ethan's associates made their first move. A man showed up at Emma's school, claiming to be a relative. Thankfully, the staff didn't let him take her, but the message was clear. They were watching. I cried that night, holding Emma and Jack close. We're going to be okay, I whispered, though I wasn't sure I believed it. Daniel insisted we move immediately. This isn't just about Ethan anymore, he said. It's about survival. Daniel and I staged an elaborate trap to lure Ethan into exposing himself. Using fake documents and a planted informant, we made it look like I had crucial information he needed. Ethan took the bait, agreeing to meet at a secluded location. My heart pounded as I watched from a distance, the police ready to intervene. This was it, the moment I'd been building toward. If everything went according to plan, Ethan's lies would finally come crashing down. The plan worked. Ethan arrived at the meeting spot, furious and desperate. As he demanded the documents, police officers swarmed in, catching him off guard. His face twisted in betrayal as he saw me watching from a distance. You did this, he screamed, his voice echoing. For the first time, I felt a sliver of relief. Ethan's arrest wasn't the end of the battle, but it was the first step toward reclaiming my life. The house felt eerily quiet without Ethan. The kids and I moved back temporarily, but I couldn't shake the memories of his rage. Meanwhile, the police dug deeper into his finances and connections. Every new detail they uncovered made me shudder. Offshore accounts, fake identities, and connections to dangerous people. It was worse than I imagined. Though he was behind bars, his influence still loomed, and I wasn't sure we were truly safe yet. Even from prison, Ethan managed to send a chilling message through one of his associates. You can't hide forever, the note read. My hands trembled as I read it, fear creeping back in. Daniel assured me it was just an intimidation tactic, but I couldn't take any chances. I doubled down on security, installing cameras, and keeping the kids under constant watch. Ethan's reach was long, and I couldn't let my guard down now. Ethan's trial was fast approaching, and I was called to testify. The thought of facing him in court made my stomach turn. I didn't want to relive the lies, the fear, or the betrayal, but I knew it was necessary. Sarah and Daniel supported me, but the anxiety was overwhelming. I had to be strong, for the kids, for myself, and for everyone who deserved to see justice served. This was my chance to ensure he couldn't hurt us again. When I took the stand, Ethan's gaze burned into me. His lawyer tried to twist my words, painting me as paranoid and vengeful. But I held my ground, detailing everything I'd uncovered. The judge's face remained impassive, but I saw the jurors exchanging glances. Ethan's calm facade cracked as more evidence was presented. Watching him squirm felt bittersweet. I was finally reclaiming my power, one testimony at a time. The day the verdict was read, I held my breath. The jury found Ethan guilty on multiple charges: fraud, conspiracy, and money laundering. Relief flooded me as the judge sentenced him to a lengthy prison term. Ethan glared at me as he was led away, but I didn't flinch. For the first time in months, I felt free. The battle wasn't over, but this victory was mine, and it gave me the strength to rebuild our lives. Life after Ethan wasn't easy. The kids struggled to adjust, asking questions I couldn't always answer. I started therapy to process the trauma, determined to heal for their sake. Sarah and Daniel remained by my side, reminding me I wasn't alone. Slowly, I began to find moments of peace, laughing with Emma and Jack, rediscovering my passions. Ethan's shadow no longer defined me. We were moving forward, step by step. Just as I thought we were safe, a new threat emerged. One of Ethan's associates reached out, claiming he had unfinished business. His cryptic warning sent chills down my spine. Daniel and I worked with the police to secure more protection, but the fear crept back in. This wasn't over yet. Ethan may have been behind bars, but his web of deceit still ensnared us. I realized I'd have to confront this danger head-on, once and for all. Through Daniel's connections, we identified the man threatening us, a key figure in Ethan's criminal circle. The police launched an investigation, but I couldn't sit idly by. I dug into his past, finding leverage of my own. It was risky, but I had to send a message. I wasn't afraid anymore. Using the burner phone Daniel gave me, I called him directly. "Leave my family alone, or you'll regret it," I warned. For the first time, I felt in control. The threats eventually stopped, and life slowly began to normalize. I sold the house, wanting a fresh start for me and the kids. We moved to a new city, where no one knew our story. Emma and Jack adjusted quickly, making friends and finding joy again. As for me, I started a support group for women who'd been through similar experiences. Sharing my story gave me purpose, turning my pain into strength. With the danger gone, Daniel decided to leave town. "You've got this now," he said, handing me the burner phone for emergencies. His eyes held a mix of pride and sadness. I wanted to convince him to stay. He'd been my rock through everything, but I knew he had his own demons to face. "Thank you for everything," I said, hugging him tightly. As he walked away, I realized I'd have to stand on my own, but I felt ready. Our new home was small but cozy, and for the first time in years, it felt like ours. I painted the walls with bright colors, letting the kids choose their rooms. We planted flowers in the garden, and their laughter filled the air again. It wasn't perfect, but it was a fresh start, a life free from fear and lies. Every day, I reminded myself that we'd survived the worst and could handle whatever came next. Emma surprised me with her resilience. One night, she said, "Mom, I'm proud of you. You're so strong." Her words brought tears to my eyes. I'd spent so much time worrying about her and Jack that I hadn't realized how much she'd grown. She'd seen the worst of Ethan's deceit yet emerged stronger. I promised myself I'd continue being the example she needed, showing her how to stand tall no matter what life threw her way. Though I'd moved on, trusting people again wasn't easy. Even casual friendships felt risky, but I didn't want to live in fear forever. Slowly, I let my guard down. Sarah remained a constant presence, and I joined community events to meet new people. It was scary, but every small step felt like progress. Rebuilding trust took time, but I knew it was worth it, for me and for the kids. Months after Ethan's trial, I received a letter from him. My hands shook as I opened it. "I'm sorry," he wrote, "but I did what I had to." His words angered me. Even in prison, he refused to take full responsibility. I shredded the letter without finishing it. I didn't need his apologies or explanations anymore. My closure didn't depend on him. I'd already found it within myself. At one of the community events, I met Claire, a single mom with a warmth I hadn't felt in years. She had her own story of heartbreak and survival, and we bonded quickly. Sharing my journey with her was cathartic, and for the first time, I felt understood. Claire reminded me that healing wasn't linear, but that support made all the difference. Our friendship became a new source of strength in my life. As Jack grew older, his questions became harder to answer. "Why isn't Daddy here?" he asked one night. I struggled to explain Ethan's absence without scaring him. "Daddy made choices that hurt people," I said gently. "But I'm here, and I'll always protect you." He seemed to accept it, but his curiosity lingered. I knew I'd have to tell him more someday, but for now, I focused on keeping his world safe and full of love. Watching Emma and Jack thrive brought me more joy than I ever thought possible. Emma joined the school choir, her confidence soaring, while Jack found his passion in soccer. Their laughter filled our home, a stark contrast to the darkness we'd left behind. They were proof that we could rebuild, that happiness was still within reach. Seeing them flourish made every sacrifice worth it. I returned to work, starting as a freelance writer. Pouring my experiences into stories was therapeutic and helped me regain financial independence. My articles on resilience and survival gained attention, and soon I was writing for larger publications. It felt good to stand on my own again, proving to myself and my kids that I could provide a stable life for us. News broke that several of Ethan's former associates had been arrested. The authorities had used my evidence to dismantle their operation. Relief washed over me, knowing the threat was finally extinguished. I felt pride in the role I'd played in bringing them down. Justice had prevailed, and for the first time in years, I could truly breathe easy. I wasn't looking for love, but one day, it found me. A kind-hearted man named Adam entered my life unexpectedly. Patient and understanding, he never pushed for more than I was ready to give. It took time to trust again, but his presence brought peace instead of chaos. Slowly, I allowed myself to hope for a future where love didn't mean pain. Emma's graduation was a moment of pride and reflection. Watching her walk across the stage, I couldn't believe how far we'd come. She was strong, intelligent, and compassionate, a testament to the resilience we'd built together. Tears streamed down my face as I hugged her, knowing this was only the beginning of her bright future. One day, I realized I'd spent years blaming myself for not seeing Ethan's lies sooner. But through therapy and reflection, I learned to forgive myself. I wasn't responsible for his deceit or the pain he caused. Letting go of that guilt lifted a weight I didn't know I was still carrying. I finally felt free. I started speaking at events, sharing my journey to help others in similar situations. Every time I told my story, I saw hope spark in someone's eyes. It became my mission to empower others, proving that it's possible to escape darkness and rebuild a life of light. Turning my pain into purpose brought me a sense of fulfillment I never thought I'd find. Years later, as I watched Emma and Jack playing in the garden, I felt a deep sense of peace. Our journey had been long and painful, but it brought us to this moment, a life filled with love, safety, and hope. I'd faced my worst fears and come out stronger. We'd built the life we deserved, and I knew nothing could ever take that away from us.